by far the most common competitive category in the United States is Pro-Am. So for those of you that are outside of the United States, this is not as common. So this is when the student competes with their teacher, but it's the student who's being judged. So this is a totally separate category from the amateur, which means two amateurs dancing together, and the pro, where two pros dance together. And in our country, it has a huge effect on our dance sport culture. So I'm going to cover the things that changes here in the dance sport dynamic. Okay, so number one, in my opinion, Pro-Am is the sole reason, the financial generator of what backs the U.S. dance sport industry, because it is a business. We're doing this as teachers for a job, judges do it for a job, comp organizers do it for a job, studio owners. It is a business, something we all love, but it's a business. And because Pro-Am has so many more competitors and they have to spend exponentially more on their comp entries, not only to pay the competition for their entry fees, but they also have to pay their pro for their time at the comp. Plus, as a competitor, if you're a Pro-Am, you have to essentially pay your teacher to practice with you. Whereas an amateur or a pro, absolutely, we have to dump a ton of money into our coaching, but we don't have to pay additional into this industry to practice for free with our partner, other than floor fees. Obviously, we all have to pay those. And so when I was an amateur dancer, I was like, well, why isn't everyone just competing amateur? It's so much cheaper. And guys, I was so naive. I didn't realize, when I entered ballroom dance in the competitive world, you know what? I was cute, I was young, I was fit. By the time I hit the public dancing, I'd been taking privates for 3 years. Like, I had a good job, so I had the money, or in some cases, my family backed me early in my dance sport career to invest in all that travel and the costumes and the lessons. And you know what? So many people are not in that boat. And once I turned pro, guys, it was an eye-opener, because I did not realize, I had all these students who are like, oh, if they could compete, if they could only compete. But it's like finding two needles in a haystack trying to find amateur partners for these people. You've got to find someone that's with commensurate age. Skill, not so much, but the other stuff is 10 times as hard to battle. You can't control the way someone moves, if they're going to move well with someone, if they have a compatible school or work schedule where they can show up simultaneously for their coachings, where they have the exact same goals. We want to compete in smooth. We want to do Latin. We want to practice 5 days a week. We want to do this many comps. We have the same budget. It is crazy how many stars have to align. And so, a few months into my pro teaching career, I was like, holy moly, there actually is a huge need for Pro-Am to give these people that can't find the amateur partner an opportunity to hit the comp floor. And there are some people who do have a partner that, they want to do Pro-Am. For example, one of my first Pro-Am students was a pre-champ level amateur who wanted to turn pro. So he just wanted to get his A game on. And so he wanted to compete with me at comps and be seen essentially dancing well. And then when he turned pro, he was actually quite successful. So and some people, personality wise or whatever, they just don't want to deal with that kind of, it is stressful to have a partner that's amateur that you're kind of on the same footing with and feel like, okay, we're not making tons of progress every, second we're together. I get it. But, in my opinion, there is something that the Pro-Am brings to the U.S. competitive table. And because so many people have a difficult time finding a partner, the Pro-Am opens the doors for exponentially more people to participate in competition. Number two, this is why that is so important. I've been teaching a long time, guys. This ain't my first rodeo. And competitors take exponentially more privates and lessons than social dancers. As a matter of fact, I've known a ton of social dancers that only attend a free beginning dance lesson, like a crummy social dance thing that's given before the weekly social dance. And so they're just not bringing the money into this industry. And money is going to bring the best people, friends. So not only do we have an economy that kind of supports, and I'm not making a political statement here, kind of haves and have-nots. And there are certainly, I think, in my observation, more people here that can really afford to drop a ton of money on those privates and the comps, which obviously exponentially increases how busy those coaches are. And then we are a free market economy here where basically supply and demand dictate the price. When you have, some very committed competitive students, and those pro-am students are taking even more lessons usually than the amateurs. So I've taught a few hardcore amateurs if they're going for a national title, but overall, the pro-ams take a ton of lessons. You only have so many hours in the day that you can teach as a coach. Physically, your body poops out. So it raises the price of the lessons. So not only do we have a higher average national income, now we have a pretty decent paying job. And because of that, many, not all, but many of the top pros in the world want to move here to teach because they can make a lot more money. Doesn't make them selfish people. This is natural. And honestly, guys, when they do move here, in my opinion, the goal is often not selfish, guys. They are working their tails off. They're probably supporting a lot of family back home, sending money back home. They come, they work hard, they contribute to the dance sport world here, save as much as they can, and then they move back home and retire super comfortably and often take many family members with them on that boat ride, which is nice. And because of the United States immigration policies, firstly, it's very easy for a championship level pro to move here. So I don't know how to say this nicely, but we are kind of sucking the best talent out of these countries. All these dancers are not necessarily trained up here. They just come here and then are able to train our competitors, which ups our game. And makes, in my opinion, that financial engine is what has driven all the top competitors here to represent the country, to train the dancers. And so that helps the United States really dominate that international dance sport circuit. It's not like genetically or Americans are, better than anyone else. Anyone can learn to dance with the right resources, really. But it's just, in my opinion, a financial thing, again, driven almost singularly by those pro-am competitors, friends. And secondly, if we have a lot of friends here on our Ballroom Dance channel who are watching from other countries. I'm super curious to hear what your immigration policies are. I know some countries like Australia, very difficult to get in there with a work visa. The United States, in my opinion, is more of a magnet as well because it is, for a pro level, championship level competitor, super easy, honestly, to move here from almost any country. And so because that door is pretty open, they're going to take advantage. And next, the United States kind of regulating bodies do not require you to be a citizen to represent our country in competition. Let me know if that's different in your country. I'm just saying, in my opinion, what's really bringing in these great dancers here. And so if it's only a residency requirement, I can't remember off the top of my head. I've done another video on this, but it's maybe 6 months a year or something. You have to live in this country. And honestly, guys, those top pros that are currently competing, they're spending half their time in England. Many don't even own a home here. They just rent an apartment, which is fine. They're contributing to our economy too. Not just in the dance sport world, but in terms of a tax base, So anyway, if they can represent our country and we can kind of attract in those top pros from around the world. Next up, we have loads of competitors because all those pro and people can participate. This means we also get more competitions. In my opinion, competing is super helpful for keeping people in dance lessons. It's a motivating factor. Well, I registered for this comp. I got to keep showing up this next couple months. Also, probably even more important in my observation for most dancers is the social glue. Okay? People naturally at these comps create a social support network. It's very difficult to do that. Well, more difficult in the dance studio because many times it's frowned upon to stay and, sit and chat in the ballroom during people's lessons because people don't want you to skeeve off the information someone else is paying for. I've seen many people in ballrooms I've worked in, asked to leave the room, which is fine, but you can't really cultivate friendships like you can at a comp where it's not creepy to sit in the ballroom all day and chat with your friends and go to all your meals together. This is just not really an option, in that kind of, I'll call it the studio work environment. The chain studios do a good job of that in that they host very regularly scheduled weekly dances. And in my opinion, that's kind of their selling point. Even if you don't compete, they can really use that social network to kind of suck people in and keep them wanting to come back. Because, and there's naturally an ebb and flow in our interest in ballroom dance. And in my opinion, the competitive aspect and the social aspect are probably going to be the biggest draws for people. Although obviously every one of us absolutely loves the ballroom dance, and that in itself is a draw. I'm one of these crazy people. I've loved it my whole life. I have never burned out. I want to practice and dance and teach. I want to do this 12 hours a day. My body won't let me do that at this age, but not everyone's like that, friends. So I apologize for going over my 10-minute mark. I was just having a conversation, private messaging with one of our Ballroom Dance Channel friends here about the economics of the U.S. Pro-Am circuit. And so I'm going to do a separate video on that because this stuff is super interesting to me and hopefully interesting to you too. So thanks for joining me today. And I'll be back with some all sorts of stuff, ballroom dance. Hey, if you have questions, ask me. If you're too shy to ask in the comments, that's easiest for me to see. Reach out to me on Facebook or email. I will definitely keep your name confidential, but I love when you ask questions because it opens the door for me. Like, oh, I bet people want to know about this. I bet people want to know about this. So super helpful, saves me a ton of time because I don't want to sit here and just puff and toot at you. I want to share stuff that you might find to be remotely interesting. And again, to our friends, I am broadcasting from the West Coast of the United States. I do recognize we are a worldwide community of ballroom dancers. We all have unique experiences. So if you have another observation I've left off in this video, comment below and also just give us a general idea. Are you in the United States? If so, what part? Because it's a big country. It's quite diverse. If you're somewhere else in the world, hey, put us a shout out in there to where you are, because Prime is actually growing worldwide. And I do feel that's going to ultimately hugely benefit the Dancesport communities. So thanks for joining me. Have an awesome day. Bye, guys.